Pew 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 pew.
And and we're live. We're live.
Woo!
Gordon, are you watching Dr. Lisa Sue?
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up on the end of this.
What's the big news?
We have 96 core Genoa, but what? And then of course Zen 4C, which of course is a little mini version. But
How many cores do you need, Gordon? If you were to say, you know what, I don't need any more cores than this. What's your number?
you know, it's just because I do think that obviously for data center they want more and more and more, but for consumers, are people really asking for more than what we have now? I mean, nope.
If anything, I feel like there's people who buy a Intel CPU and disable all the E-cores.
Yeah, so, I guess it's, but I mean, I just kind of wonder, and it's not like you with more cores for consumer, you really do get more performance. So it's not like it isn't useful, but I just question whether the 90% of consumers really need even more cores. So I've actually been okay with 16 to 24 is a good, reasonable amount for most people. I don't think people are going to need 32 and 64 cores at home just yet, but you can't limit yourself too much.
Says you.
Well, it's just hard to justify. It's hard to justify, I think, for consumers to buy as well as for companies to make if the software isn't going to catch up.
True.
So, and if the use case scenario isn't there, and
Brad, we have an early question from the chat. A friend of the show, CR Pull, says Brad wrote an article a few weeks ago about CPU temps. Do those guidelines apply to Xeon chips as well?
Probably not. I couldn't tell you without going off the top of my head, without looking it up. But if you're running Xeon, I would look different. I'd look up specifically for that. Wow, none of that was in English. I haven't been on the camera in a while.
I know.
Hello.
We haven't been in the studio for 3 weeks. Or I guess no. I didn't go in that week. Yeah, I didn't go in that week before Computex. It was just you and Willis. So for me, it's been like a month. I forgot what this place looked like.
I just came back from vacation too. I'm like, Computex happened. Haven't been on video for a while. Went on vacation. How do I speak?
Wait, Gordon or Elena, how do you feel? Are you going to be able to keep up the energy for us?
You know, it's funny because last week you and Gordon definitely seemed like you were like, oh, jet lag. And I remember thinking like, all right, I got to be perky this week. And this week y'all are way more normal. And I'm feeling like,
yeah, no. I got some McDonald's coffee here. So although it's me, I think it's like a special kind of like it's McDonald's coffee from a Keurig Cub, but I can't really tell the difference. I think it actually tastes like real McDonald's coffee.
Is there a special blend they have? I don't really drink coffee, so I don't know.
Well, it's McDonald's coffee is actually, as much as people think it's terrible, it's actually, I would rate it like there's diner coffee, which is pretty bad, right? And then from diner coffee is just generally bad because it's like, like those industrial, carafes that have, and it's been like boiling on, it's been just like burning for hours.
I used to work at a restaurant. I know what you're talking about.
It's the worst swill ever, right? And it's just like, you just have it because it helps wash down the hash browns. And then from there, I would definitely put gas station coffee below that. And then right at gas station coffee is as you know, Dunkin' Donuts coffee, which is just like.
And you think those are just fighting words because Adam was.
The way Adam
to promote Dunkin' Donuts before the show.
Well, Adam promotes the Dunkin' Donuts coffee as you use it to absorb that's for your donut. It's just,
It's like
you wet your donut with it. And
Gordon, it's like going to Panda Express and only buying rice. You're missing out on the whole experience. You don't just go to Dunkin' Donuts and get the coffee.
Well, why would you buy it at home is what I'm saying. I wouldn't say it's good coffee.
I'm not going to defend that. I'm not going to say somebody should buy Dunkin' coffee and just drink that at home.
As a New Englander, I would say that most folks go only for the coffee.
Yeah, I think it's really popular.
Yeah, but I would say that's I don't know. I would say I
can't defend that one.
Like my experience with New England coffee habits would indicate like, thank you for the advice, which I can ignore because clearly there's subject matter expert, and then there's the opposite of that, and that would be everybody in New England in coffee. So I remember going there in the
Gordon just wants to fight everybody.
1980s, and they had zero idea what good coffee was. Like, it was just like, what? They, like, maybe actually it may have been the early 90s we'd gone there, and they had no idea. And no, I mean, I don't mean to insult you, but I'm going to insult you because it's just.
I don't find it insulting. Dunkin' Donuts is the everyman's coffee. Y'all come from an area where you get venture capital funding for coffee startups.
I'm drinking McDonald's coffee. All right, I'm drinking McDonald's coffee out of a K-cup, and the reason is, now I was making this is I'm not lying here because I know it's hard to tell when I'm lying because I'm so good at lying, but. I was making I went into the coffee machine. It's like, whoa, we got McDonald's coffee? So we had the Starbucks. Like, I'm not going to have the Starbucks. I got to have that. And Luis, our facilities guy, was in there. It's like, yeah, I just got the McDonald's coffee. And he had Blue Bottle. Like, Blue Bottle is the venture capital coffee. That's like all the tech bros that you hear about that drink that. It was like $10 for that cup of coffee. I don't even like Blue Bottle coffee.
That's not $10.
Most overrated coffee in the world. So, like, they're right over there. I can insult everybody. That stuff is just terrible. It's just like, that's terrible. That's terrible. It's just too much. Like, you got gas station coffee, and then you got the Blue Bottle coffee. It's like.
It's too strong for Gordon.
It's just kind of ridiculous. Like, and all it is just pour over coffee. Right? So, it's just, yeah, we're wasting time here. We don't have that much time because we're going to try to get out here on time. Well, Adam is still tuning. He's still tuning.
You got to get nerdy about coffee, too.
Yeah. No, people love it when Gordon talks about coffee. Yeah, we were having some sort of internet
entire regions of the country.
Connection issue, but it looks like it's been resolved now. So hopefully, cross your fingers. If your stream is breaking up, just refresh the page, reconnect it. It should be good. All right. Cool.
Hey, congratulations, Denver Nuggets. World champions.
Oh, did they win?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was an exciting finish, too.
Huh? Was it? I didn't watch it.
Exciting finish, too. Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm sorry, but like, hey, I was rooting for, actually, I'm sorry, people in Miami. I was actually like, because I have relatives in Denver, I was rooting for them because, but actually I'd predicted they were going to get rolled over. The Heat were going to get rolled over anyway, and they got rolled over. So sorry.
And hello to Victor Suarez from Panama City. Glad to have you here. Also, my wife Lindsay's in the chat, and she made a good point that I'm just donut obsessed. So when I go to Dunkin' Donuts for the donuts, and the coffee's just the extra. So maybe not everybody's.
Yeah, but why not soak the donut up in marginally better coffee? And I'm not saying like
I don't dip the donuts.
Oh, you don't?
No. I've never been like a dipper. Like into
Gordon making stuff up.
Anyway,
well, you just soak. He said soaking coffee up.
Dipping donuts in coffee is where it's at. I agree with Gordon.
He's soaking it up. Yeah. Hey, we're going to talk about the Reddit revolt that's going on today. I think it's still going on. Linda wrote a story about it. She's going to talk about that because I have no idea what's going on. And also GPUs sales going off a cliff.
Yeah, GPU, interesting stuff there. We are back in the saddle again from Computex. I feel mostly over the jet lag, so hopefully everything ends up working okay. And yeah, I think.
Wait.
What?
There's my face on the screen, and it's really large.
Yeah. It's a large face.
Are we on like not gallery view? I'm very
No. I'm trying something new. I'm trying to have it be individual speaker based. So, yeah.
All right.
So I mean, yeah. Especially since we can't use Teams anymore because it doesn't like us. I'm trying something new.
So large.
Okay. I think we are good. Gordon, are you ready to do it?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, yeah. No, I'm trying to catch up on the AMD data center news. They're actually in San Francisco today. I unfortunately didn't go. I didn't think my back could sit that long, but we'll see how long it lasts.
Wait. So. Lewis Loss's Zoom meeting could do equal split? How do you enable that? I have never been able to find that.
Are you going to do it now?
I don't know. I don't believe you, Lewis Law. I've looked for this.
Why are there two Elenas?
Well, because this one's the gallery of all the people who are in here, and then it focuses on the main person. So, Lewis Law, you need to tell me what's going on. Anyway, he says he uses it daily. All right, tell me how to do it. Anyway, we'll figure that out. Gordon, I think I am ready. if you are ready.
Yeah.
No ad read today, so go for it whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was trying to figure out because I think we should, because I mean it is hot news, but it's not in our wheelhouse where we store the wheels. So we'll just mention what happened from AMD this morning. Yeah,
do it.
Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
In this episode of Full Nerd, oh wait, what the hell is it? Oh, Reddit, got it. In this episode of Full Nerd, Reddit revolt, GPU sales sag, and your questions answered. Welcome to episode 261 of the Full Nerd. I'm your host, Gordon Mong, with co-host Brad Charkis.
Hello, Internet.
And Elaine Yee in the box next to other Brad.
Hello.
And Ann and Patrick Murray is controlling the vertical and horizontal.
It's true. We're back in the saddle, back in the office. It's been about a month for me, so glad to be here. I had to update everything because everything was out of date. But yeah, and then for those who remember our Computex coverage, we have a bag on the table here of Gwai Gwai, which translates to like be good. You like put that bag on stuff that you need to like operate efficiently. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring this bag in and put it on Gordon because he needs to operate efficiently today for hosting the podcast. So far, so good, pretty much. So Gordon, be good. Be good, be good.
Yeah, no, I will be good. And I do want to mention some breaking news, although it is outside our normal kind of like coverage area. And that is AMD just concluded its data center briefing in San Francisco.
We weren't there.
We weren't there. We got invited, but I didn't think I was up for it personally. And also data center stuff is obviously quite outside our normal coverage area. But the big news is they have, formally Genoa is here, 96 cores. And also Bergamo was also announced, which is, so Genoa is Zen 4 based, as we know and love it from our current CPUs, Ryzen CPUs. And Bergamo is 128 cores based on Zen 4C, basically kind of like a shrunken down Zen 4, smaller cache. I'm looking at a story from Anton Shilov over at Tom's Hardware. And again, it doesn't really apply to us. It's just kind of crazy core density. They both run on DDR5, and it looks like 360 watt TDP, according to the Tom's Hardware story from a few days ago, previewing some of it, but obviously crazy amount of cores. And Intel actually yesterday preemptively announced, I think, that they are saying, core density is great, which obviously they're losing because they have 56 core Sapphire Rapids, but our AI performance is better. So they have that's where Intel and AMD are already fighting. This is data center stuff, so we can generally ignore that fight for consumers. Mm-hmm. Just want to get that in there for the breaking news portion.
Breaking news. Gordon's breaking news. All right. Well, we got actual news to get to. This is something I actually have not been following. So, Elena, I think you wrote an article about it. So can you tell us what the hell's going on with Reddit?
In a one sentence nutshell, Reddit's users are mad at the CEO.
Is it only the CEO?
I mean, obviously it's gonna be the whole management team. I don't think any company operates in such a manner that the CEO can be that autocratic. But the gist of it is that Reddit decided to start charging for API calls. So if I remember right, it's 24 cents. Yeah, it's like 24 cents for every 1,000 calls, which may sound like not that much at first like blush, but given how many times that a third-party app is going to make an API call just to get, the data from Reddit so that you can read your favorite am I the butt face posts.
Is that a real thing?
Am I the butt face?
That's the toned down version of the one that I actually didn't read. I'll let you figure out what word is censored for that sub. That it was going to add up to like astronomical costs for a lot of these third-party app developers. And so one of them, Apollo for Reddit, which is really popular for the Apple crowd, came out and said that it's going to cost him something like $20 million a month to pay those fees. And it would put him out of business. And so that he said that he was anticipating having to shutter the app once the new policy takes effect, which would be July 1st. So not even that much time. So the announcement was made last week on June 5th, if I remember right. So it's basically giving them less than 30 days to figure it out or, basically close shop. And then there was some if you want to read about it, The Verge actually does a really good job of like tracking all the like they said and then he said and then they said kind of stuff because it gets kind of wild. There was like blackmail accusations and like all kinds of other things, and then Reddit held and the Reddit CEO held an Ask Me Anything, which is basically you have a post and then in real time people ask questions and then you reply to the comments, right? And that didn't go over well. A lot of the replies were expletive filled and not positive towards Reddit. And during that same week, when all the back and forth was happening, and other app developers were saying, third party app developers were saying that they also would be priced out and they would also have to close down. So like Reddit is Fun is another one that was saying similar things. A bunch of the moderators of different subreddits got together and said, hey, we're going to basically hold a protest. We're going to go dark next week for a couple of days to basically say like, hey, this site is basically user driven and you are imposing policies that are going to make it a lot more difficult for, the moderation team to be able to do their jobs, which is not paid at all, right? Like these are basically people are getting together and saying like, hey, we want to have a group that discusses if somebody is a butt face, right? Like, and then you have like thousands and thousands, if not millions of users that come and join the community. And then of course, because we're humans, you're going to need moderators to keep it relatively civil or keep things from going completely off the rails. And nobody gets paid for doing that, for dealing with sometimes the worst parts of humanity. Mm-hmm. And so they're saying like, hey, don't kill these apps that we use to make our jobs easier. And also this is just kind of a really terrible way of approaching it. So a bunch of subreddits signed up for this pledge. It started the blackout started yesterday. Some subs started going dark earlier on the weekend, and there's actually a tracker. It's called Red Dark, so REDDARK. The website isn't getting as updated as quickly as the Twitch stream that the same person or same group is hosting, and it's basically tracking how many of the pledge subreddits are actually dark right now, and a lot of them are, and there's a lot of really big ones. So like today I learned Funny, a bunch of them are like in the double digit millions, so like 40 million, 30 million subscribers are dark right now. And the number of pledges keep going up, but I've been watching and like the number of them also going dark is not going as always at fast a clip as yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see if they get beyond this like roughly 96% of like all pledged subreddit number right now, where
the actual
actually gone dark.
To me, the actual number of subreddits that have gone dark is more noticeable than the percentage versus pledged. Like there's like over 8,000 as of yesterday subreddits that went dark. Like it's a big protest.
Yeah, it's like about 8,200 right now. Let me look at the stream real quick. I have it up somewhere in my many browser tabs. There we are. It's at 8,401. So 8,400 subreddits have gone dark in protest. So we'll see. My thing that I'm kind of curious is what your takes are on this is like how effective do you think this is going to be, right? Like, do you think a 2-day protest is really going to get their notice, or do you think that people are going to have to hold out longer? Because some subreddits have also pledged to go longer than the 48 hours. They basically are saying like, we're going to stay dark until some kind of reasonable concessions are, or at least discussions are had, because one of the biggest complaints that third-party app developers have been having are saying is that they just can't get a hold of anybody to actually discuss this properly.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a 2-day protest is going to change things immediately, but it is extremely, large at this point. But it does feel like it will take more than this to get them to blink, because it's clearly a staring contest. I don't think has Reddit commented about this.
Yeah, they said we respect your right to protest, but nothing's changing.
Yeah, so I mean, they're just like go pound sand. So I don't think
there's some important context behind all this too that I think is worth mentioning. Reddit declared for an IPO like 2 years ago, so they're looking to go public. They still haven't because the world being what it is. And they're trying really hard. Their valuation has dropped a lot, so they're trying to make money. So one of the big issues, what they're basically doing now is what Elon Musk did with Twitter. It's saying, hey, screw all you third-party apps that made us popular. We're going to lock stuff down so we can show you ads in our official app.
Right.
And that's an issue because Reddit has traditionally neglected its app very, very badly. Like it originally, the app that they use now, they actually bought from a third-party developer before, it's based off of that. But something like 30% of Reddit users, the hardcore users, the one who go back and use it every day, who tend to be in their comment and stuff the most, use these third-party apps. A lot of the moderators do because they include all kinds of tools and stuff that aren't included in the official Reddit app whatsoever, aren't included on the website. So what Reddit is basically trying to do is force everybody into their own app and showing them ads. I'm not a programmer. The thing that confuses me with both Twitter and this is I don't understand why they can't make their API usage say, hey, you can use our APIs to make Reddit apps or Twitter apps, but you also have to show our ads and send us the money for those ads. Like I would think you could make that part of the usage, but instead they're trying to shut everything down and get everyone in the official apps, which suck.
Yeah.
As in it sucks as a move and the Reddit app sucks. So,
but there's parallels. A lot of other companies have done the same thing because, they start off as these kind of, grassroots kind of, it's open to everybody, but eventually when you got to make money, you have to control the experience. You have to control the UI.
The difference here is that it is something like 25-30% of people use third-party apps to access Reddit. And those are the heaviest users. Those are the ones who moderate the sites, who comment all the time.
Right.
And those are the ones, if they want to get into a staring contest in the hopes of shoring up their ad numbers before going public or their revenue numbers, like losing your top 25 to 30-ish% of people because they're not going to, a lot of people are just like, I'm not going to use Reddit anymore after this. We'll see how much of that actually happens, but they're taking away generally useful tools with no warning and people are mad.
Yeah.
I can't see that ever happening.
Many people. I know many Reddit moderators, and they have no desire to try to use the Reddit app for moderation tools.
No, I understand that part. Sorry, Elena, you had something to say?
I was going to also add one other bit of detail. There's just a lot going on with this. So another detail, I hadn't had a chance to confirm this, but I think a couple of people also saying that they think they're also going to kill off old Reddit, which is also going to turn off a lot of people on desktop. Because the new commenting tree system is just kind of terrible to navigate through the UI. Like I personally hate it. I use an extension on desktop to make it look more like the old style. And I probably also have old Reddit enabled for that to happen. I don't even remember anymore. It's been years. But it's basically a lot of it seems to be a push towards getting the monetization more under their full control.
Right. And, they have, I do want to point out, actually, maybe that was somebody else. Did they just recently have layoffs at Reddit too? Or is that, I think 90 people?
Probably. Who knows?
Yeah. That's just a story of everybody. But I'm actually kind of surprised that it is handled so in such a clumsy manner because I understand it's a business. They want to make money, obviously. Serving ads, most of their revenue stream I was just looking does come from advertising. It's really hard to say how much they actually make because they are a private company, but I've seen numbers from 200 million to 300 million in ad revenue, and that was for 2022. So maybe it's gone up good in that time. So I understand why they want to do it, but I'm just surprised that they would just try to nuke all the third-party apps before all the tools are in place. Because I would have thought the way to do it is just to buy a couple of the key competitors and just integrate it into one super app, have the tools for the mods, and then get everybody happy instead of just it's our way or the highway. So it does seem like a really clumsy. This could have been avoided, but they just decided to do it in such a roughshod manner. I can understand why people are pissed off because if you're doing this work for free and they're going to make it hard for you, you're not going to go out of your way to work for free for them, right? So it makes zero sense.
Yeah, it's clumsy and it's frankly disrespectful. Like, people have been building these apps forever, using these apps, building up these communities, using their own, like, ignoring the apps themselves, which do make money off of being sold and whatnot. But the communities themselves have been putting in their own time and using these tools to build these up over years. And to just be like, well, you got 30 days to figure it out, go F yourselves. That really sucks. Like, if they really cared about the community, if they want to do this in the right way, they could have. Again, who knows? Maybe they could have figured out a way to make the API access include you have to show our ads and give us that money. But they could have said, hey, you've got 6 months and then this is happening. Figure it out. You've got 12 months. Figure it out. It's the 30 days out of nowhere. And before they pulled the rug out about third-party apps, when they first introduced this API change, they obfuscated it. They were saying, we're going to put this in here just because, ChatGPT, all these AI startups, they're starting to scrape all of our data. So we're going to put this API change in effect to keep them from scraping our data. But then use that as a Trojan horse to nuke all these third-party apps. And a lot of people feel like it's a bait and switch. So there's a lot of anger amongst Reddit users right now. And a lot of it is righteous, in my opinion. But
yeah,
someone's going to blink.
2 days is not, I don't think, going to be enough to get them to capitulate on any point, because, I mean, it's very easy to wait out 48 hours. It's not like it's a critical service.
The size and scope of it, I think, hopefully will get some of the points across. And I think if they actually do follow through and cut off access to those apps, they will notice that it's going to be more than 2 days. They're going to lose a large chunk of their
We'll have to see, right? Because a lot of people said they're going to leave Twitter, and they really haven't fully left Twitter. I don't think in any significant amount. Obviously, not the same scenario, but Slashdot reposted something from The Verge where apparently there's an internal memo from the CEO saying, like, yeah, it's just a blip, whatever. They're just throwing basically, I'm summarizing this. This is not verbatim, but basically summarizes. They're just throwing a temper tantrum. They'll get over it.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for that, because we saw the same temper tantrums, and again, we're not getting into the rights or wrongs of Twitter, but believe me, a lot of those people who just whined a lot, they are still on there every day. Like, and they're like, oh, I have to be on here. Okay, well, I thought you were moving to Canada. I've said this before. It's like, I thought you were moving to Canada. It's like, what are you like? And then every day we know somebody who does this. Like, okay, they did not move to Canada because they just wanted to whine about it and yell. And in the end, they still stayed. So I don't think in the end it will move Reddit that much. Not 2 days.
I disagree.
Right?
If you look at Twitter's numbers, it's a very different beast. It's a whole bunch of other things going on at Twitter as well. But if you look at the numbers, their ad revenue year over year, they've dropped like 60 to 80%. I forget what the numbers is, but they're making 60% less money than they did before they started doing all this. Businesses feel that, and Reddit does not have the richest man on the planet funding them.
Right. No, I mean,
and when it comes to Twitter, like the user base you were talking about, that, like me, I used to be a very, very heavy Twitter user. Like, I had sometimes thousands of tweets a month, like dozens of tweets a day. These days, like, I was looking last month, I think I had like 21 tweets, and they were basically all work related.
Right.
And the thing is, with businesses like these, they're advertising based. So the heavy users that spend more time on there, that's where they get the ad impressions from. That's what makes all the money. So like someone like me who used to be on there making thousands of tweets, checking it whenever I used the bathroom, stood in line, went outside, whatever. Like, I'd be soaking up ads that entire time, making Twitter a bunch of money. Now I do like 20 posts a month tops. They ain't making money off of me. It's going to be the same thing for Reddit.
Yeah,
it's more complicated than they think it is.
It is complicated, but I do hear, we do know people that have not moved to Canada and like every day still continue to like react to it, right?
But still, moving to Canada is different than being less active on Twitter. So
it's a little more extreme.
I just kind of wondered though, because I mean that's a problem with this protest, is that I don't think by and large, especially the mods are the one who decide to shut it down. The people who go to it, I don't. It's always hard for me to believe the average person even is aware or cares.
Most communities did votes, and they voted to do it.
Yeah. It wasn't just the mods just saying autocratically, hey, we're shutting down in protest. Most of the subs that I'm on, it's basically either a user put out the post first or the mods put out the post saying, hey, this is happening. Do we want to participate? And most communities were like, yes, we want to participate. I deleted the mobile apps off my phone because I was like, I don't want to give them traffic during this time, thinking that I don't care about the blackout, because personally I do. Not to get too personal about this, but it's really interesting to me to see it happen though, because we're seeing it with Twitter, right? We saw it with Twitter, I guess, because they've kind of made their decisions already. We're seeing it now with Reddit, and it makes me wonder, like, if this is just the way of social media. Like, outside of Facebook, most have crumbled because they couldn't figure out a way to monetize, and then something else comes up in its wake to replace it. And I wonder if we're just going to be going through these constant 10-year cycles of like, well, I guess they ran out of somebody funding that, so now we have to see something new, a new project that someone else wants to fund for X number of years, and we all move to that. It's kind of weird.
I mean, the thing about that is interesting with Reddit is there was actually a lot of hate on Reddit, I think, when it was coming up, because those vibrant forums that a lot of websites used to run were destroyed by Reddit, right? They wiped out all these small communities and soaked up. Everybody just went to Reddit because, that's just where everybody was. You go where people are, and a lot of these sort of once vibrant forums that everybody went to, a lot of them were just wiped out by Reddit too. So I don't know if people are going to go back. If Reddit were to like vanish, are they going to go to somewhere else? Or I don't.
There's some chatter about like alternatives, like decentralized ones. That's been kind of the new buzz concept lately, I feel like, where everyone's thinking about how do we create these social media networks that run on technology that is not locked to one company. So like the idea behind like Mastodon, right? Where it's like, like if Mastodon as a company or an app goes down, you can still take all of your followers and, move to a different app with all that stuff. You own more of that data, I guess, and more control.
Yeah, sure. The thing is, so again, my view of humanity is a very general low faith and of the average human. So I just like whatever. It's like, we're gonna go and start our little commune. We're gonna like, okay. Every little commune that they starts up, that's how you get the whole Far Cry series, right? Because every little commune starts up really cool, and then it turns into its own little, like heavily armed, compound, it's like Far Cry all over again. It's just like, I just don't believe that. I just don't believe in it, and maybe it's just because I'm so cynical and jaded about it all. I honestly, that's why I honestly think in the end. No one I don't honestly think it had any impact on Twitter. I don't think, frankly, that
it had massive impact on Twitter. They've lost 60% of ad revenues. If they weren't being run by Elon Musk, that place would be shut down already.
Well, but I mean, also, I think part of that though is, and as actually Tim points out in the chat, he was saying, well, it wasn't because people left. It was because it got hard to advertise, right? So it got a little difficult because, again, we don't want to get into the politics of it all, but it got very polarized. People said, I'm out. There were a lot of kind of like really like kind of like things that were like, okay, this is like, you know what? I'm McDonald's or I'm Coca-Cola. We just like, we're out for now. But believe me, in 6 months, if suddenly that, they'll be back. And I just have very little faith that protests and humans often do the things they say they will, because like, I think most people, like, they go to the Reddit app and like, oh, it's off, but then they go back in 2 days and it's back, and then like they don't. It's hard for me to believe that anything ever really matters. That's why I generally don't have much faith in it. So, but do you think though, like, here's my question, because again, there were social media is really flavor of the month too. You got Dig, you got whatever, all these different kind of text-based forums. if Reddit just simply really does vanish, something just will replace it, right? It'll just be the next text-based forum that people like to discuss in text.
Hopefully, I would say that the unfortunate part about this is that there is a lot of collective knowledge stored in Reddit, right? Like one of the reasons that I ended up using Reddit was long after they had become like an established thing, was because initially I wasn't really into the idea of kind of the old Reddit vibe, which is a little more, it had a certain kind of vibe to it that was not my jam, right? And then it started to open up a little bit more and became a little bit more broad in terms of the communities it was attracting. And
Less 4chan. Less 4chan.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to say it like tactfully without getting too deep in the details, but that was perfect summary. Thanks. And I realized that like it's a really good way to get started on a topic, right? Like I don't necessarily trust everything that's said in the comments, but every now and then you can recognize somebody who kind of seems like they know what they're saying. You're like, oh, that's what I Google for. Now I can kind of like go off and, you know, figure out from there what's going on, or that kind of stuff, or like even like personal stuff like, hey, this happened to me, has it happened to anybody else? You're like, oh, there's like 3 million people that like are on this one subreddit that are talking about it.
Yeah.
And if the site just like disappears, then like you can't search for that anymore, right?
Yeah,
like,
I don't even use Reddit personally that much.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
But the times that I use it is usually for troubleshooting. Like I'll Google something and be like, I'm having this problem. And usually at the top there's like at least a couple Reddit threads of like, oh yeah, I've had this problem or that problem. So that's my main interaction with it. So yeah, I would definitely miss out on that.
Yeah, I've been a long time Reddit user. I love Reddit. And it stinks because when Twitter kind of went off the rails, again, I didn't move to Canada, but I post 20 times a month as opposed to 2,000 times a month now. And I've been, now my bathroom times and my stand in line times and everything, I usually hang out on Reddit. So it's just really disappointing as a long-term Reddit user that they're going down this path personally.
We do have a super chat from a friend of the show, Denever1G1, gave us $10. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Said, selling property to move to Canada is different than spending your money at Target instead of Walmart. Also, I'll be back in 2 days after a weekend with Mom. You can't hit me or the kids, Redditors now, is what the Redditors are saying. No question there. We got a $5 super chat from Matthew Bayer. Thank you so much. Said, why would Coca-Cola come back to Twitter if for $8 I can make a verified account pretending to be Coca-Cola admitting to human rights violation?
Well,
yeah, that was quite the period in Twitter's history last fall.
I would say the reason why Coca-Cola would do that is because Coca-Cola is a for-profit corporation. And that's all that matters. If there's money, if Twitter gets to this patch and basically the people are there and you get the things that make it safe for corporate America to advertise their wares, they will advertise their wares there. It has zero to do with any of that other stuff in the end, because the job of all for-profit corporations is profit. So I don't understand why you think that's going to be an issue, because frankly, that's why I'm so very cynical about the Reddit thing. Although I do think this protest is wide enough. They're going to have to blink. I think they're going to have to blink, right? They're going to have to do something, because I mean, it's just interesting to me that it was just so heavy-handed and bizarre, because it easily could have been avoided.
It's all bean counter stuff, man. It's all about the IPOs. It's all about they're gearing up to try to sell themselves. They need to get the revenue numbers up to look like they're making money.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, a case of the classic Wall Street short-sightedness. Like, because this is the long-term hardcore user base that they're, spiting to hopefully prop up these short-term value numbers to launch an IPO and make some money, get these revenue numbers up. And, if they don't blink, it could be the start. I don't think Reddit's going to disappear overnight. It's never actually made money. That's the funny part of all this. But it could be the start of a slow death of Reddit.
Yeah. I mean, but I also, I do think that we do have to remember that We don't know what exactly added up to the math to make a decision to come down with a hammer on everybody so hard, but it could have been just like they really needed this IPO. Like they really clearly, we don't know. It's a private company. We don't know what the pressures are, and there may have just been like, because if we think the CEO of Reddit said, "Hey, we're going to make this move," and that nobody at Reddit says, "Dude, you are going to piss off a huge amount of our core base," somebody said it, but that decision was made anyway to do it, and you want to be the fly on the wall to really know what the decisions were for that. But I'm sure somebody told that person, and that decision was made. It's hard for me to believe it was just made in a cavalier manner. Like, oh, it's all right, it'll be okay.
Well, they could be testing the waters too, because what if they were like, well, if we try it, we could always walk it back. If we try it and then nobody complains, then hey, you know what? I could see them testing the water too.
I don't get that impression based on the CEO's reactions though. Like that they have drawn a very definitive line in the sand so far, and as been said multiple times already, it is basically both sides seeing who's going to blink first right now.
Yeah, but I'm going to guess most CEOs that are reasonable have just decided, and then this is not a CEO that can't be replaced, right? So the decision is like, look, we got to make this timeline here because the board wants its money. We invest. We got to do this, right?
He's one of the co-founders, I thought. So it's not like he's just a rando, if I remember right.
And then
they were replacing CEOs for a while though. Like who it is. I'm not sure if he's the co-founder, but he can definitely be replaced as well. They replace folks at Reddit.
Do you think
they're still a private company, so I don't think it's something where a board could replace him, is what I'm saying. So I do wonder what's going on behind the scenes, because it's like, I think that you can slice this a couple of different ways, right? Like they could have still come out and said like, hey, in order for us to keep the lights on, we have to make some pretty dramatic changes. And one of them is going to be this, which we know is going to affect you all really badly. Here's our plan for incorporating some of the tools that you all love and really have said that you use daily into our official app. And they could have like just PR'd this so much better, is what I'm saying, right? Like they didn't have to just be like, here's the change.
True.
Bye. Like deal with it.
A 6 to 12 month roadmap would have made a big difference. And
even 3 months,
open communication.
30 days is just so short, relatively speaking.
Yeah, although I know everybody who sits down and they rationally always think, we could have just talked this through, and you could have just leveled with us. It happens so rarely. I do wonder if it's because usually when people say, if you just leveled with us, it would have been fine. It was like, actually, the times when we tried to level with you, it didn't work out. Like, I just kind of wonder if everybody says like, oh, just be straight with me. It's like, no, actually, I don't know if it ever has worked. Are there times where people are just like, hey, look, we're staring at this. This is the end of us, and we need to do this. That I don't know if people actually ever appreciate it. Like it's like. Right? I mean, mostly like, oh, if you like, as we know, we're all just cogs in the machine. If the machine had just said like, hey, you know what? We just need to level with you and we're doing this. I know it's going to make you angry. But look, we're going over this cliff and we need to all, I don't think that ever happens, because usually what happens like, oh, great, I'm looking for a job. Like everybody immediately heads for the exits. I don't know if that ever really works. So.
I'm just saying there's different ways to handle it. Obviously, I'm not in PR, probably for a good reason. I'm just saying there are different ways to handle things.
The cool part is we're talking about the reasons behind it and stuff. The cool part is that doesn't matter to you or me or Elena or anybody reading this. Like, if you're mad about it, participate in the blackout. Do what you can as a consumer. Like Gordon always says, vote with your dollar. In this case, vote with your eyeballs. Because at the end of the day, the reason that they're doing that doesn't really matter as much to you and me and everybody else as much as the fact of what they are doing. If you disagree with it, take what steps you can against it. If you don't care, just keep on keeping on, man.
Yeah, you do you is the classic, right? Because I think that's what matters. It is.
All the reasons and the guesses about why it's happening, it doesn't matter. That matters to the Reddit CEO and the Reddit board or the Reddit owners or whoever, but it doesn't matter to normal folks like us. So all we can do is vote with our dollars.
You know, what I do want to say though is I think people are very dismissive of Reddit. And I know it's just because it's easy to go like, oh, you're just some like 12-year-old in your basement, kind of like dismissiveness. But I just think that is ridiculous because, yeah, Reddit and YouTube comments and Twitter and Facebook, they're all basically a reflection of humanity. So you can find the best in humanity and you can absolutely find the worst. So I think it's ridiculous to lump everybody in like, oh, well, that's just nothing is lost. It's just some stupid memes. I think that's really wrong because some of the best information you're going to find is on Reddit and YouTube comments or anywhere. You just have to look for it. So I really think people who just want to wave it off is just like, I think that's so wrong because it is unfortunate when you have a well of information go away and then you just kind of dismiss. It's like, well, no big loss, right? So it would be sad if it does go away.
I have been joining a lot of new Discord subs because I mean, like I'm part of some like smaller subs where like there's a lot of, there's kind of a basic internet principle, right? Where when you have a smaller community, like things are actually really good a lot of times because people genuinely want to connect and help each other and, discuss the topic at hand. And then there's a tipping point where it's like, oh, all the trolls have showed up. Like, like everybody who's in here to write graffiti on the walls and, lewd pictures. Like that's okay. I guess moderators got to step in now. Yeah. But Discord seems to be like the temporary stopping place or like holdover while the, protests is happening, kind of like a backup. But it's definitely not going to be the same because you can't really index it and like see it from Google the way you can Reddit. And that's one of the biggest strengths of like a forum style place because it's
I loathe that Discord has become the default forum for a lot of things for that very reason.
It's great in one way, but it's also kind of scary because it's a little bit like Facebook where it's very closed doors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not as open, right? Sadly, though, I was trying to go to Our Hardware to look up our next topic, and it says Our Hardware is a private community.
Yeah,
subreddits temporarily closing presses, Reddit killing third-party apps.
But that shows just how much people do use Reddit. You went to go to look at Our Hardware for it. So this is getting noticed. Like it's being covered by CNN, CNBC.
Yeah,
lots of people.
I mean, that's typically like when you show up on cable news, then that's when real pressure comes on. So you kind of hope somebody's going to blink, but
let's see.
We'll see, right? I don't know what the change is because I think they've decided it's part of their existence to eliminate third-party apps because they got you got to make more money, right? So that's their job.
Well, talking about pressure, there was a report about GPU sales. So please talk about what's going on over there with GPU sales.
Do you want me to take this one too? Because I also wrote the story.
That sounds great. I've been on vacation.
It's okay. So John Petty Research came out at the end of May, like May 31st, with an initial report about the general state of the GPU market sales, and basically saying that quarter to quarter, the sales went down. I don't remember the overall market, but for desktop GPU specifically, it was about 12%. And then the bigger number, the shocking number, was year to year. So these were first quarter 2023 numbers, right? And so compared to previous like 2022 first quarter numbers, it was down by almost 40%. Sorry, not sales, shipped GPUs. So the number of GPUs that were shipped was down almost 40%, which is not exact translation to sales, but gives you an idea of like interest, demand, what they're anticipating, right?
Yeah, because that's real quick, just to clarify, that's usually a company indicating, okay, well, we need to ship less because there's already more in the channel that needs to sell through. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. So
shipped in this case means like AMD, Nvidia, Intel sent a graphics card to somebody. It doesn't necessarily mean that the PC it goes in is sold or the standalone card is sold. It just means this many have been shipped by those big companies.
It's more an indicator of like demand, right? That's usually how it's been seen from my perspective, and often a lot of times like as loose loose summary of it, people will kind of equate it to sales, but yeah, it's more indicative of other things that kind of sort of relate to sales.
It's pretty close though, because it's not like stores say, "Hey, keep sending us hundreds of GPUs." When
exactly, because demand is more down because it's not selling, right? So for desktop, we're looking at 12% quarter to quarter drop, almost 40. I think it was like 38 point something percent drop for year over year. And then even the other parts of the GPU market are down as well. So they were saying, I believe, like almost 45% for notebook. And then the overall market, I guess also including server and all that kind of stuff, then it was like 43% down year over year. So it's a pretty big drop. And then they came out with another report on June 7th. This is all from the same, I think, data, but like they were like slicing off little tiny bits as teasers so that you could buy the $3,000 report that they sell for analysts. And that one covered desktop in a little more detail. So they started breaking down also like more of like the market share. So NVIDIA lost. Basically, in summary, NVIDIA is still very dominant. It's about, I think, somewhere like around 80, mid 80s, 84-ish%. But they lost like 2%. And that 2% basically went to Intel. So Intel gained 2% market share. AMD basically stayed flat. And all three, or sorry, don't off the top of my head, I can't remember Intel, but both AMD and NVIDIA both lost, just what dipped in generally speaking. So it was like when I was looking at these numbers, like there's a lot of different ways to slice this pie. So like the numbers started blurring together for a little bit. But the interesting part is that it seems that Brad's advice to everybody of voting with your wallet may be coming to pass, because one of the things they did say is that they don't anticipate things picking back up during the second quarter. So like the last couple of months, because it's normally a slower period anyway. But they do think that by third quarter and fourth quarter of this year, we'll start to see more current gen sales pick up, because more of the previous generation, like the RTX 30 series, the 6000 series from the Radeon 6000 series, will have like more cleared the channel at that point. Like a lot more of the sales have been based in older cards, they were saying. And like one of the numbers is kind of funny, because they're saying like the general interest in graphics cards, like the number of people that upgraded was down, but the number from quarter to quarter of people who did buy something went up slightly. So I think we're just basically saying like we're kind of in this weird transition phase where the way I interpret it was that people who had been holding out for upgrades began finally upgrading, right? Or buying those cards. But in general, the interest in buying a graphics card seems to be down still.
Yeah, which makes sense because people just don't have the money to spend on it right now.
And real quick question. So just to reiterate this shipments of the discrete desktop graphics, this is that overall number is all of them, all three manufacturers, right? Not just NVIDIA on the main number. Okay.
Correct.
And then that's why Jon Peddie also includes then the difference between the major manufacturers.
If you look at the article, or even if you look at the original like blog post or reports that Jon Peddie Research released, they do have like a little bar chart that shows like the breakout for each of the three major vendors.
Yeah, I'm showing it on screen right now.
Okay, great.
One interesting thing is that while Intel went up in Q3 2022, if I'm reading this chart right, NVIDIA was also at its like highest of, what is this, 10 years? Is this a history of 10 years? So like 87%, that was the highest NVIDIA had of a market share, even though Intel went up. And then, AMD definitely slid.
And I do want to point out, though, so for people who are watching the stream, the charts that you're seeing are actually from a Tom's Hardware article from Anton. And two Anton stories today. Basically, he went in and looked at all the previous years of data from JPR, and he basically put them all on a nice little chart. So you're seeing that represented now. So
thank you, Tom's Hardware.
So thank you, Tom's Hardware. Go read that. Anton Shilev wrote the story and did these charts.
Yeah. The one we're seeing on screen right now that's Tom's, and that breaks it out in terms of, I think, the how much the shares that way. But there's also one that John Petty released where it's actually a bar chart that's maybe a little easier to look at, because this is showing the historical.
This historical.
This one, the one from John Petty Research, shows like the actual just Q1 2023. If you're interested in that.
Okay.
There's a couple interesting bits that stand out for me. Just kind of looking over all this while we've been talking about this. I've been reading over this. A couple things that stand out to me is one, just the fact that only 6.3 million graphics cards were shipped last quarter. And they say that's the lowest in decades that they've been tracking it, not just like a short-term blip, but decades. That's, not great. Obviously, PC demand is cratered right now. And so the Dells and HPs and whatnot of the world are not snapping up graphics cards. And they probably already have a lot of older Radeon and GeForce 30 series and 1000 series. So that's probably playing a big part of it. Another part that jumped out to me is of those 6.3 million graphics total sold, according to JPR, 5.3 of them were from NVIDIA. So even though NVIDIA, and on top of that, not only were 5.3 million of that 6.3 million NVIDIA, the last 3 quarters are the 3 most dominant quarters NVIDIA has had for GPU market share.
Yeah.
So even though they're putting out these terribly priced, poor value cards right now, their dominance is just getting bigger, because like the Radeon RX 6000 series was great, but AMD just couldn't make enough of them. So
Well, but I want to clarify, but this isn't breaking down actual. We don't know what models. This is just shipments.
No.
Yeah. So this could
shipments.
be 30 series. This could be 40 series. We don't
Whatever
know
the
that
ship,
breakdown, but yeah.
We're far enough into this generation that I would think most of the ones shipped this quarter would have been modern GPUs.
Yeah, and also, I think it just shows you NVIDIA's dominance here, right? Because even though things are bad overall, because again, everything is cratered, but which is again really the reason why I've been kind of riding people, because it is only, you're looking at Q3 2022 of 87% market share, and then down to 86%, and then Q1, which is the most recent, is down 84%,
which is still the highest of this 10-year chart that Tom had put together. I do want to ask another clarifying thing that somebody had. Ivan Ramaznov, butchered your name. Are miners cards included in these charts? So these charts are consumer based, correct? Or is this like all GPU shipments to miners, to data centers, to everybody?
Their data, I think from the May 31st report, was looking at the entire GPU market. But the stuff we're looking at right now is focused on discrete desktop cards, which I assumed was meant more about consumer.
Although I don't think JPR's ever been able to say how many shipped to miners. So I'm going to guess this includes all discrete cards shipped. I don't think so. For people who need to understand, I don't know how JPR sources these numbers. I don't believe AMD and NVIDIA would like, hey, here's how many we shipped. This is honestly the way a lot of these third-party analysts work, is they sort of have to go to different add-in board vendors and sort of they agree to get numbers from the vendor, or like you go to a PC vendor and they get the numbers from them and then they put it together. They agree not to say how they sourced it, and they can sort of get a really good feel for how many cards have shipped. Because again, if you're like HP or Dell, you don't want to tell each other exactly what's going on. But if you give the information to this analyst who's going to keep it secret, you at least have it's better to have intelligence for the entire market so that you can make decisions that benefit you. So, although to me, the interesting thing is looking at I did not realize 2017 to 2018 is when cards were insanely, they were, again, looking at Anton's numbers, historical numbers, 16.1 million in Q3 2017, 15 million, 16.1 quarter. What the hell caused that boom? That was the last crypto boom, right?
Yeah.
It's funny to look at, even if you look at the previous crypto boom and then you look at, say, the crypto boom of 20 to 21, I guess we never actually peaked at that same 16 million because look, Q2 2020 was 11.5 million, 11, 11, 11, 12. It definitely lasted longer. So GPUs were just in demand for 2 years straight, but it didn't have that as high a peak as those previous years.
Yeah, that is the interesting thing. I was looking at too. I mean, because the common sentiment was, oh hey, all these GPUs are going to miners during the pandemic time. Gamers can't get it. They're probably making so many GPUs, but at least according to this data, it doesn't look like that was the case either. Like compared to the previous boom.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because you basically had not only were miners buying them, but also gamers. Because that was the pandemic started, everybody went to play games. People were they were willing to pay $1,000 for a stupid 3060 card, So, I think it just kind of all added up. But again, it went on for 2 years straight, whereas that previous boom was only about a year or two, right? So, and that's why I actually produced this chart from Amazon, Adam.
Oh, okay.
Because I went up and I looked up an MSI 3060 card, 12 gig. And I just looked at all the historical prices for the card from when it was introduced in April 2021 to 23. I was hoping to see if it
just Amazon though.
This is just Amazon. It's only for one card and it's a 30 series. I was actually hoping to see if the previous boom, but this obviously didn't come out. But it's crazy to think the 3060 Ti in April 2021 was $1,000, and it went on for like months. And then, of course, it dropped down to $750. And of course, now it's awesome because you can get the damn thing now for under $300 finally. So
it was funny. I was actually chatting with Keith. We're talking about content stuff. We always have a weekly meeting on that stuff, and we were looking at our past video where we did the $280 GPU shootout. That was 2 months ago, and so for $280, I bought 3 cards on Newegg. There was a third-party A770, MSI 6600 XT, I think it was, and then a 3050. That's all I could get for $280. And we just looked on Newegg yesterday, and now you can get a 3060 for $280. It was oh, well, when did that happen?
Yeah.
So
you can get there was a deal I saw sometime, probably yesterday, because I just came back from vacation. You can get a Radeon RX 6600 for $180. You should hop on that all day long if you've been looking to upgrade for a while without breaking the bank. 6600 for $180 is worth the money.
Is that so? Where was that? 1600 gets you beyond 3060 performance, right? Because that's generally
no, it's a little bit lower, but it's a lot more bang for buck. Yeah.
it used to be priced against the 3050, but yeah, versus the 3060, it's yeah.
Oh, okay. But the price, I guess it makes up for the price. Well, let me tell you, Brad, I will definitely consider buying that. Oh no, I'm going to buy an NVIDIA card because just just the numbers, the NVIDIA here, it's just it's, they ship 5.29 million cards versus AMD shipping 0.76.
We've talked about this before. These numbers to me kind of indicate that it really sucks that NVIDIA knocked out of the park with Radeon 6600 or 6000 series exactly when they did. They finally had the node advantage over NVIDIA because NVIDIA for the 30 series was on that ancient Samsung one. AMD was on modern TSMC. The cards actually knocked it out of the park. They were great performers. They had great value. They had great power efficiency. And then the pandemic hit. And we've talked about this before. NVIDIA focuses on GPUs. So whatever wafers they get, they put into GPUs. For AMD, Radeon's kind of the bottom tier. They make way more money per inch on CPUs, especially on EPYC CPUs. They have to get all their APUs for laptops. They have to get all their desktop chips. Those all make much more money. They have to fulfill their console obligations. So they only get a set amount of wafers. And they have to slice and dice that how they do. And I think Radeon often just kind of falls at the end. And it's too bad that Radeon 6000 came out when it did because they definitely couldn't keep up with NVIDIA's pace is what I'm getting from those numbers.
So what happened in so interesting looking again at that discrete desktop GPU market share chart. Again, we're going to credit Anton over Tom's Hardware. Go read the store if you want to see his charts, which we're using here. But what the hell happened in? So if we're looking at 2020, AMD had a very solid 22, 23, 20% range-ish. And then right about, according to the JPR data, Q3 2022, they fell off a cliff. And NVIDIA spiked going from...
And that's not all just Intel coming in.
No, it's not.
The delta between 24 and 10 is not the 3% that Intel gained.
What the hell happened in Q3 2022?
When did the 7000 series launch, Brad, again?
November, I think. Maybe
Q4,
December, but November. It depends on how you measure Qs in this, because every company measures Qs differently. My guess, I have no idea. If I was going to speculate on this, though, I would say that graphics card prices are getting affordable, so people are starting to snap up some of those older GPUs that are available cheaper. They're starting to ship more of these out to the Dells and the HPs and the Micro Centers of the world. But you also have to remember, up until, what was it, a couple weeks ago, the only modern AMD options were the flagship 7900 series, and they were bothered by bugs and stuff to start. Whereas NVIDIA came out, they were very high priced, but the 4090 sold like hotcakes. The other cards are also high priced, but if you ignore that, they're really good at what they do. And I saw plenty of people on Reddit, which you can't look up today, unfortunately, saying stuff like, the 4080 price sucks, but I hold on to my cards for 5 years, and I've been waiting 5 years because of the stupid pandemic, so I'm just going to buy a 4080. And AMD has offered nothing between the 7900 launch in November and the 7600 launch that just happened. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of that.
Well, and real quick, Patrick Fishbach in the chat says, Gordon, in Steve's videos, it's just as Gordon said in Steve's video, people complain and buy NVIDIA.
Yeah, and actually looking at that Amazon chart for that MSI 3060 12 gig card, the price of that in January of 2022 was about, I don't know, looks like about $800. July of 2022, it's basically down to $500. So I kind of wonder if, the sad thing is AMD often gives you more performance for the dollar, better performance, right? But then I feel it almost feels like if a gamer's going to go buy, they're like, well, I can't afford the NVIDIA card for this. I can't pay $800 for a 3060. But by the time we get to about July-ish that summer, the prices of the NVIDIA cards start to come down. They're like, oh, well, now I'm going to go back to my favorite brand, which is NVIDIA. I kind of wonder if that's part of it, because it does feel like the NVIDIA prices got a lot more better. I'm not going to say reasonable, because $500 for a 3060 is not great, but I do wonder if is that just that brand equity, which, I kind of make fun of, but it is really hard to get people to switch brands. It is really hard.
I also wonder how much of it is we had just so many factors going on between the years of 2020 to the end of 2022, right? Because we had the miners, we had limited supply just because of supply chain disruptions. Then we had the shipping container logistics stuff on top of that. I want to say between January 2022 to July 2022, there's so much had changed by that point. A lot of people had gotten vaccinated and boosted, and things were starting to open. The people were really starting to lean more into going back to their old habits, their old lifestyles before the pandemic. I think that some of what you've mentioned has to be factors, but I also wonder how much of it is almost self-selection, right? The people who were buying cards during the pandemic included a bunch of people who had not been PC gamers, or maybe not strong PC gamers for a long time. And then once things started opening up again, I wonder how many people just said, oh, I was going to get a card, or they already purchased cards and they're not really into sticking with it. They went back to, I don't know, playing outdoor volleyball or something. I'm thinking of. I'm not active enough. I wouldn't know. And like the people who were left were the people who were really strong PC gamers who have just been waiting to upgrade their cards, but they couldn't afford to. So they're like, yes, finally, like my time has come. Everybody has finally left the airport and the bathroom is open. I can go now.
Well, that's hilarious. An important thing to keep in mind, though, I think we're getting some things confused in this, is shipments are not sales.
Yes.
Like NVIDIA strikes going up so high the last few quarters, those are shipments.
Right.
Both NVIDIA and AMD have said, hey, we are trying to work through our existing inventory of last-gen cards. So they're not shipping things out. They're letting the existing inventory sell through. So those cut into shipments. Mm-hmm. But more importantly than that, AMD's 7900 launch feels to me like a very limited launch. They had a lot of bugs they were working out for the first couple months in the driver. Just ask my Nuke system. And I feel like there was not a lot of quantity of that sold out. So right now, if you want to sell a system with a modern GPU, or if you're looking to sell a modern GPU in a retail store, these last couple of quarters, NVIDIA has been your only option because AMD just has not had new products to put on the shelves. So I'm not surprised to see NVIDIA with an 82 to 87% market share because they're the only ones who put out graphics cards as horribly priced as they were the last 6 months of the year.
Yeah, and that also does reinforce that. Unfortunately, nobody gives a damn what you say, YouTube and hardware reviewers like us. Because, I mean, it's honestly, I don't think it really matters that much in the grand scheme of things, right? Because,
well, I mean, if you take a step back and look at the whole picture, the overarching thing isn't just that NVIDIA has a high percentage here. It's that this is the worst quarter for desktop shipments in the decades that JPR has been tracking this.
Right.
So yes, NVIDIA has this big slice of this pie. It's still a pretty bad pie right now. And the reason they have such a big slice is probably because like AMD just simply hasn't been competing too heavily the past 6 months. So I would hesitate to look too much into this.
Yeah, I mean, we're just kind of guessing at tea leaves, but you know, it's down for everybody too, right? I mean, AMD numbers are down too, as well as NVIDIA. I mean, the only bright spot is Intel. I mean, because their numbers are you can only go up, right? But I mean, they're shipping 250,000 cards in Q1 2023. That's they're eating into somebody. Most people assume it's eating into mostly AMD, but honestly, I bet it hurts NVIDIA somewhat too, right?
Yeah. I
mean, to me, the bright spot is budget gamers. For the first time in forever, we actually have budget cards that are worthwhile. Like, I was one of the few not super positive reviews on the 6500 XT. Like, I was acknowledging this place in the market, but it still was a pretty crap part. But now with all these things tanking, these companies are having to compete on price again, especially as they roll out their new stuff. So now you can get a 6600 for $880. They had the ARC A750 on sale for $199. So it's not reflected in these charts, but there still is good news to come out of this for us everyday buyers.
Yeah, I had to look up when the 6500 XT came out. It was Q1 of 2022. So
I had the battle scars. I remember.
Go ahead.
Oh, we do have a super chat from Skeet Sayer, a friend of the show. Skeet Sayer gave us $5.50 Canadian. Thanks so much. Said, are these new cards? As of right now, the 6700 XT is the #1 selling card on Newegg. Maybe in Canada. I'm looking at the Newegg right now and sorted by best selling. The top one is 3060, 12 gig. The second one is a 6600 non-XT. Third one is a 3070 from a company I've never heard of. And then the fourth one is another 3060. Fifth one is a 3060 Ti. So, yeah.
That's where it gets complicated because we, again, like Gordon said, we don't know how JPR sources its numbers. But
yes, these are new cards. Shipments of new cards.
These are not necessarily new cards. These are any GPUs. They will be new, but like AMD is still making 6000 series cards and shipping them out. Sapphire just announced the new 6700 XT yesterday.
Yeah.
Like that would be announced. But we don't know when Newegg bought those shipments. So those could be cards that they've had on their shelves for 6 months, in which case they would not show up in this report.
True.
Or it could be, hey, we ran out of 6700 XT. Now that's worth so much. AMD, can you send us some more? And in that case, it would show up. It's kind of hard to draw the two together.
I have a question about inventory stuff because, the JPR blog post basically says, hey, the companies are actively working to reduce their inventory levels. Quote, with inventory being run down, sales will improve. But I'm wondering, basically they're saying all these we have a wonderful excess of older cards that are still really good right now. That's probably going to dry up in the next, 4 or 5 months. Do you think it's worth going, like if you want to get a cheap graphics card, like right now feels like a damn good time. Do you think that's a reasonable logic, or is it better to like, why don't I wait till these cards dry up and maybe the prices will come down? I'm just trying to think of the strategy for somebody who's thinking, should I buy an older generation card, arguably works fine, or should I wait for hopefully when the excess inventory dries up, and then maybe AMD and NVIDIA will pull down prices because they don't have to compete with the older cards at that point?
I think it depends a lot on your situation. Like, I think if you were been stuck without a graphics card for a while or have a terrible old graphics card because the way things have been, I don't see the bottom end getting any cheaper than it does now. I would be shocked if you can get a 6600 for much cheaper than $180 before they all go away.
Right.
I think ARC is going to bottom out around here, etc. We still got to see what the 4060 brings at $300 next month. But in general, I think if you're looking for 1080p gaming, the lay of the land right now, see what's up. Anything above there, except for the 4090, like if you're in the market for 4090, just go get a 4090. Ain't nothing going to beat a 4090. It's great. But everywhere between there, with the way sales have been going, I would be shocked if there's not a resetting of prices across NVIDIA's stack, especially if AMD manages to get compelling 7700 and 7800 GPUs out at some point, which is crazy that we haven't seen those yet. But with sales being so bad, it's like this is reminiscent of how it was with the RTX 20 series. And the RTX 20 series is when a year later they had to time to reset. The crypto stuff burst, nothing's selling. Here's the Super Series at the price points they should have been when they launched. And I would not be shocked to see that happen in the next few months. So if you're looking to maximize bang for buck, if you're going above 1080p, you might want to wait. But at this point, like the last few years have taught us, like if you have the money and you want to reach for a certain experience, you might just also want to go for it.
Yeah. I just kind of, it makes me wonder, like, I do think in the cost of the current modern cards are higher than people would like. Some of that is obviously it costs more to make stuff now, but I still in my heart believe some of it's just because you can't sell these things at what a 3060 is going to go for, because you got to have those older cards get out. You can't compete with them, right? You just got to, once those are kind of gone, I kind of expect prices to get a little better, probably not to what people want them to be, but I kind of think, the 4060 Ti is what, $400? Is it $400?
Yeah.
You could see that
theoretically
being $350-ish, maybe,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that I have no idea. I have no insider knowledge, but I would be shocked if there isn't if not necessarily a super line of cards to formally change things, then super style price decreases at some point, because this is all very, very reminiscent of the 20 series. Right down to the 20 series being hitched on DLSS and ray tracing, even though it wasn't widely available at the time. That's what they're doing with DLSS 3 in this generation. So there's just so many parallels.
Yeah.
For timing though, I don't know if it's going to be soon, like super soon. I think it's going to I think
before the holidays.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to go through seeing what gets released still, because as Brad just pointed out, the 4060 hasn't come out yet. That's going to be in July. And then we're still waiting for AMD to fill out its stack. So I think between those two things, there's not a lot compelling gamers mostly gamers who are looking to get these cards to immediately jump on it. right? I think a lot of people are still playing a little bit of a waiting game because they want to see like which way is going to be the best um, for their use case. Like do they go with a last gen card, or do they wait to see what current gen's going to shake out to be? And even then, like I feel like this might, I don't know what your timeline was, Brad, but for me, I don't feel like we'll really see the effects of this until maybe holiday, because I just don't know if there's going to be enough to compel people at all the different tiers to like make their decision that quickly. I think in the 1080p space, actually, we're going to see much more movement around that as opposed to somewhere in like that 1440p, just because we don't have something like a 7700 or 7800 yet.
I think it's going to depend how bad sales get. Like looking from these shipments from JPR, it's the worst in decades, and you can't keep that going forever. So it's like with Reddit, something's got to blink at some point.
Yeah, but I mean, it feels like prices will get really good. Hopefully, I mean, I can't imagine them staying high, elevated, but it's going to require the older cards to get dried up. But apparently, the predictions are they'll be mostly dried up by the end of the year. So, I mean,
video cards just reported. I have no insider knowledge. Again, I've been on vacation. Video cards, I just saw reported that NVIDIA is considering pulling up the 4060 launch into late June rather than July. That's just based off what I saw on video cards, who honestly typically has pretty good track record. So, and their sources said the reason for doing so is that needs to launch before they can start to consider possibly readjusting pricing up and down the stack.
Mm-hmm.
So, fingers crossed, hopefully, maybe.
So we might actually, I mean, it just feels like we might finally get that price war people have been waiting for. I mean, it's
if AMD puts out more new parts.
and Intel continues to, hopefully keep going. So
they should.
Yeah.
Those Intel parts are real good for the price these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so weird because I think I've said here before, I really thought NVIDIA was going to try to come down and jump on Intel's head, but they never reacted because I guess they didn't feel they had to. But it does feel like they'd like to just like kick them, pretty hard. I just can't imagine.
Price is a thing NVIDIA can adjust at any time.
Yeah.
And they have done that in the past. Like they try to get as, like any company does and should do, they try to get as much money as they can for as long as they can. But if Intel is a serious threat, like Intel, I have, again, no inside knowledge, but I can almost guarantee they're losing money on every art card they sell.
Right.
Whereas NVIDIA most definitely isn't. So there is a lot of wiggle room between those two spots for NVIDIA if it wants to come down and start swinging.
Yeah, NVIDIA just has no incentive to get into a price war if they don't feel like they have to. But
yeah, unless their cards aren't selling, right? So it's not a price war necessarily against AMD.
Yeah.
And Intel, it's more like a price war of like, oh crap, our cards aren't selling.
Well, I mean, they are selling. They're still selling more than the others, but they're not probably selling at the clip they'd like them to.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like NVIDIA's biggest
shipments are the lowest in decades.
Well, I know.
That's the important
Yeah.
That's the important part. Dang, I got pit stains.
Oh.
It happens.
I thought Buccaneer shirts automatically came with pit stains, though.
Yeah, it's like calico cut pants.
No, but I mean, like for NVIDIA, I think like NVIDIA is in the fortunate situation. Like it feels like their competitor is NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Like the 4060's biggest competitor would be existing 3060 cards. Like AMD and Intel, we don't even care about because we're 85% of the market. Like they really have to worry about themselves before they can really push hard. It feels like. I mean, it's just, and then it's just one of those things where, again, I'm criticizing people, but I'm not criticizing NVIDIA because they've done a wonderful job. To gamers they are gaming. PC gaming is NVIDIA. And you can hate NVIDIA all you want, but NVIDIA is literally PC gaming, right? That's how it's viewed by most mainstream gamers. And Elena she's protesting. Wait, she's protesting me? She's gone dark.
She went dark, yeah.
I think it's just kind of that's the way it is. It's really hard to get people to not buy NVIDIA, and you can't blame NVIDIA for that because they've spent decades here making sure that if you want to buy a gaming card, you want you want Team Green because it brings so much perceived value to it, and I just don't see that changing. You know,
I think their consistency over time is a big factor in it too. Like, sure, this generation is high priced, but you know, the 4090 came out, then the 4080 came out, then the 4070. Every 1.5 to 2 years, it's like clockwork for NVIDIA. Like they keep the pace going, and AMD just hasn't been able to do that so far this generation, at least.
And you know, the thing is, like when we look at like Ryzen versus Core, like the first Ryzen came out, it was amazing. It didn't really sell. Or it didn't really like, oh my God, like suddenly we saw things flip. It felt like it took like, you know, 2 years, 2 to 3 generations of like clearly
3000 definitely.
And I just think about it, like at that time though, it was an ass kicking so bad on Core by Ryzen. It was like, it was undeniable. Like you were getting 8 cores when Intel was selling you 4 cores. AMD was giving you 12 cores, 16 cores. The multi-core performance is insane. I mean, Intel still honestly gave you wonderful single lightly threaded performance. For a lot of people, that's what still mattered, but it took years and years of AMD literally giving you twice the amount of cores as Intel to like get like that mind share to get like, yeah, I'm buying AMD. I mean, yeah, Ryzen definitely, or Radeon definitely gives you more performance than GeForce a lot of times. Is that, but
price for price.
But they're not giving you like Ryzen core performance. They're not giving you like, we're giving you 4090 performance for half its cost. We're not really.
Well, but it depends because Ryzen 1000, like this 1800X, yeah, you got double the cores and like that was awesome in Cinebench, but in gaming it still had problems, right? So
I remember, I had to buy an article back then.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say this is a 1-to-1.
Well, it's not quite 1-to-1, but I still think like we went from 1,000 to 2,000 to 3,000. 3,000 is really where they're like, oh damn, this is like. Yeah. I feel like 3,000 really kind of turned, especially when they did 16 and the 12 core. But that is just like they had to basically double Intel's performance on core count. Yeah. And that's really what everybody talked about. They didn't talk about the gaming performance anyway.
Yeah,
I play at 4K. It didn't matter. I do think like Radeon has not done that where like we're giving you twice the performance of GeForce, right? And it just, I mean, it really takes. I mean, then what I'm speaking to is getting gamers to change their mind, and it's really hard to get people to change their mind in any brand, right?
I think they did a decent job with that with Radeon 6000. I think they could have priced it a little bit better, but again, terrible timing with the pandemic and the shortages and all. Yeah. But I think AMD knows this because you see them talk about it over and over again on the Ryzen side, is that consistency. You can't just beat them once and then ride coattails from there. It takes 2 or 3 generations of consistently executing. And that's what they are doing over there on the Ryzen side. And they are not quite there yet with the Radeon side. And I think that makes a difference, especially to the Dells and HPs of the world, who are the ones who will probably account for 85% of this JPR number.
And also the sad thing is it's hard to see that actually ever changing because NVIDIA executes. As much as everybody's saying whatever, they don't care about us, they execute. So I can't imagine. Yeah, sure, they're got to get off the gas because why would you? But it just feels like it's. I just don't see it changing, unfortunately. And I say that unfortunately because I like to see competition, so like make it better for everybody. But I don't know.
So
we'll have to see.
And real quick, this is just a side tangent that I was thinking of. Like, okay, so I don't see the 1-to-1, but I'm trying to look at how many GPUs were shipped in this year. And then I was looking up how many consoles were shipped in that same amount of time. So I'm seeing a thing say at least the PlayStation 5 had 6.3 million consoles since the beginning of the year. States this Destructoid article from April. So it's a little outdated, but yeah, I mean that's the thing is that hey, when you're on console and console's shipping a lot, that's all AMD.
Well, so 6 million for
PS5.
Oh, PS5.
Yeah.
So yeah, they say if you look at total gaming market consoles plus PC graphics, AMD and NVIDIA are actually about 50-50.
Yeah.
But the difference is those console APUs are they make AMD a whole lot less money.
Yeah. It's different, but I don't want to forget.
But it is about 50-50. AMD is big.
Yeah. And actually AMD, I think it's hard to, I don't think they exactly break out the profit lines, but actually graphics side, like they do pretty decently. Even though in revenue you always think like Nvidia is this monster, but because of console custom and because of how Radeon doesn't have a huge market share, but they still make decent money, they actually are fairly competitive with Nvidia for revenue, right?
Yeah. Also,
I forget the numbers off the top of my head, but if I recall correctly, last quarter AMD and Nvidia's gaming revenues were within like 10% of each other.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and I thought you were trying to like shade PC gaming there by saying that they've shipped more, but I'm just
no. I'm
six,
trying like
seven,
as if we're just looking at this, like it looks, if we're just looking at GPU desktop sales, it's like, oh man, AMD's in a horrible place, and it's like, well, they got other stuff going on too, and this isn't even including the Steam Deck. We got a $12 or €12 super chat from Patrick Fishbach. Thank you so much. Said, why is AMD great if not seen in the PS5, Xbox, Steam Deck? People love those, though those are different APUs, and then server, all that stuff. So it's they've got a lot going on. This is just one look.
Yeah, the thing about it is they complement each other, because frankly they wouldn't have consoles if they didn't have Radeon, and they wouldn't have basically this brand new handheld market if they didn't have Radeon either. It's just kind of it all feeds into itself. So, and they basically it is crazy to think AMD basically owns desktop console and handheld console. I mean, as far as PC based x86, right? So
yeah.
That's just all AMD. Like Intel and Nvidia don't even exist here.
I mean, the Switch, Nvidia is in the Switch, and the Switch is the best-selling console. So,
yeah,
I know you might think it's boring, but the Switch still outsells the other consoles.
No, I hear you, but
just to be fair, that is Nvidia.
But the Switch is an established market. This is basically handheld x86 gaming is like brand new, and AMD totally has a lockup on that. So you got to imagine Intel and Nvidia are like, how do we break into that? Like, if this thing really runs away, then we want a piece of that action too. So
for sure,
they got to get in there.
That's why Nvidia was trying to buy ARM.
Yeah, there you go. Side note, we should get going to Q&A. Brad, Elena, feel free to pop out if you need to.
I got 15 minutes.
All right, cool. Then let's switch over to Q&A. If you have a question that you would like to be answered on the show right now in the live chat, put your question in at PC World. That this is the best way for me to see it. If you're listening or watching this later, we have a link to our fine folks over on Discord. There is a Full Nerd Questions channel over there. I have some backed up. We have a $5 super chat from Riptides. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Said, trying to find some of the less discussion differences between AMD and Intel CPUs. Things like QuickSync, RAID, USB 4 versus Thunderbolt, faster RAM, AVX 512, any others. What are kind of things that, people usually don't look at just the full benchmark chart? And it's like, hey, there's these little things that differentiate each platform.
Sounds like basically got it covered, because QuickSync is a big difference. Obviously, AVX 512 is an advantage for AMD, which is just funny right now.
Weird, yeah.
weirdly odd. And then also, I would say the other thing is like, and the intangibles are, frankly, developer relations. Paying to have people go out and help developers support your processor makes a huge difference. And unfortunately for AMD, Intel has been doing this for a long time with a lot of money, and that does make a big difference, because if it's optimized for you, it makes a big difference. That's why Apple is in a fantastic place it is right now with its processors.
I may be wrong here, and if so, people are going to yell at me, and rightly so. But I believe that modern Intel systems can achieve higher stable memory clocks as well. If you're into memory overclocking or you need fast memory, I tend to see people hitting higher clocks more often and more stable on Intel.
Yeah, and that's like, I would say that's generally you're going to have more success pushing higher clocks on Intel modern CPUs, but
I meant memory.
Yeah, for memory, but there's no guarantee, because it's comes down to CPU, everything. The DIMMs you're running. I guess the other thing to mention is DDR4 option. There's a rumor of a Ryzen, a 6-core Ryzen X3D part in the 5000 series that's going to come out. And I think the headline that I saw, because I didn't read the rumor, was it's intended to be this counter to Intel because they have a wonderful message because, hey, by the way, we got DDR4, right? So there's a lot of these DDR4 options. So they kind of want to push that. But having Intel with DDR4 on its newest parts is a nice advantage too for Intel if you're looking for that. There's a differentiator.
Okay. Another question here. This one came in pretty early from a friend of the show, Pedro Acura. Said, the question for later, is it worth upgrading from a 3070 to a 6800 XT? The resolution they play at is 3440 by 1440 at 165 hertz.
Depends on what price you get it for. I would say, actually, if you can get it for a reasonable price, I'd probably say yes. The 6800 is a bit faster than the 3070. But more importantly, if you're playing at that pixel packed ultra wide resolution, memory concerns are going to become an issue for you. 3070 only has 8 gigabytes of RAM. So if you're looking to hold on to the card for a while and use that monitor, the 6800 has 16 gigabytes of RAM, and I would feel more comfortable with that if you don't mind giving up DLSS and other NVIDIA features.
You don't think it's worth waiting for a 7000 series similar to it? Because the 6800 feels like it's a little long in the tooth as well.
It is, but I don't think that AMD is going to launch any flashy new features that you would need in that. And I think that if they do roll out a 7800, it probably won't be the $400 to $500 you can get a 6800 for these days.
Right. Okay.
It's also different too. I didn't clarify with them, but they obviously have a 3070. They're looking to upgrade. Can they sell that 3070 and then make the difference? What's that? Kind of. But yeah, it's a little bit more of a side grade, but yeah. Here's a question from, first we got a super chat from LaSalle Rhymes III to give us $10. Thank you so much, friend of the show, and said, great footage from Copytex and great show today. Thanks for the insight on the Reddit going dark. Anytime. That's we're here to have some fun and talk about interesting things. So I appreciate that super chat. This is a good one from Victor Suarez. Will APUs eventually replace entry-level GPUs? Do you think that'll happen? Can you see that world?
Yeah, I think we're already there.
Getting close. Yeah, I think so. I did just look up. I have a 3070 ultra wide benchmarks from a couple years ago when the 3070 came out. So I think it was Pedro who asked that question. If that was you, Pedro. I would recommend Googling that 3070 ultra wide benchmarks. I have an article up. It doesn't have the 6800, unfortunately, but that was roughly about 3080 power. So you can use that as a somewhat stand-in and go look and see what the performance difference is in addition to the 68 bytes.
Okay.
And yes, I do think that APUs will eventually replace sub $200, maybe $250 graphics cards.
Ooh, I don't know about that high.
I think sub 200. So? Yeah, in time. I don't think it's going to be in the next 2 years, but I think 3 to 5 years plus.
Is that though because of the fact that the technology is just going to go that way, or is because the price points have all been floating up, so that's going to become more of the most reasonable way to approach it?
Yes. All of those things. I think that AMD and Intel are both investing a lot in integrated graphics with ARC and with Radeon. And obviously, discrete graphics cards are getting very expensive to make these days, especially on the cutting edge process. And when you factor in all the big, huge hunking coolers and extra metal and I think I could see $200 graphics levels being achieved by APUs the next few years, and those would be the standard. I hope I'm wrong, but I also kind of don't mind if I'm right. So we'll see.
It just feels like that's typically I figure it's like the leftovers is where you end up with on that segment. It feels like you could take some of these cards, the leftovers would be pretty powerful against any APU from either Intel or AMD for a while.
But is that the same though as I just don't. I'm more on Brad's side just because I don't think you're wrong about the leftovers because it's a good way of making use of everything that you've got on hand. But I think it takes off the pressure to make it like a continual constant thing as part of your stack, right? It's more of like, okay, like we can have because I remember buying like early, in my early days, I bought like a $75 card just so I could have graphics, right? And I don't think those are going to go away per se, but I don't think they're necessarily going to be like we are going to make sure you always have the equivalent of a 1030, right?
Well, here's the thing, and we talked about this in a recent episode. NVIDIA is already taking the chip that traditionally would have been called a 4050 and making it a 4060, bumping all those things up. So I think that plays into it as well. What these cut down cards are now going to be called 4060s, 5060s, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's like when you're looking at 1030 class, that's
different. Yeah,
that's that's a few more.
There will still always be markets for things like that because some business users are going to need extra video outs.
Yeah,
or you're going to need graphic stuff. So I think there will be low end options, but I think by and large, AP place budget GPUs.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, that burgeoning handheld market is going to continue to push APU performance, and also laptops, things like that. So, I think it's definitely a good place to be, good place to focus.
Yeah, but I mean,
you feel like we both feel like Intel's probably looking at that and being like, oh man, we need to really bump that up too.
Yeah, right. I mean, you don't want to give that up to AMD. Why would you? Although, I mean, everybody, NVIDIA, when they originally quit, people forget this, but they were in the original Xbox and they quit. They always said, like, you know what? That ain't no fun anyway because we're selling these things for like, it's just, there ain't no money in it. That's what the original statement was when they got out. And I kind of wonder if, Intel and NVIDIA, like, yeah, we want a piece of that. No, not really, because it's like, why would you bother, right? Who knows?
But it makes a lot more sense if you're already selling for them to be selling them as APUs, to be selling them as the processors that have these badass graphics attached.
Yeah, that's true.
Real quick, we touched on it, but friend of the show, Star Screamus, wants to ask officially, any thoughts on the 5600 X3D for AM4 rumors? What do you think?
I was surprised, honestly, because if the rumors are true, we don't know. But if we go all the way back to the launch, it was like, oh no, they're just like, it just didn't make any sense, right? It just did not make any sense to do a low end product. And then now suddenly it makes sense. It kind of makes you wonder what's kind of going on there. Something. It feels like it's a reverse. Like I feel like that was a reversal of the messaging early on. It's like, no, it didn't make any sense. So
I don't. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
A lot of leftover parts, or just like some weakness that they need to shore up that they did anticipate when they launched the 5800 X3D.
I don't necessarily believe those rumors are going to wind up panning out. Like, I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. But if they do, it kind of makes sense because you got to remember the 5800 X3D, the 8-core one to start with, was just a cut down leftover version of the ones that went into the server chips that already had the cache put on top. At this point, maybe they just have enough 6-core ones that can't be used for 5800 X3D that they're like, the market sucks for everything anyway. People are holding on to what they have. Might as well try to sell them a 5600 X3D.
Yeah. Well, and also I'm looking at the camel result of the 5800 X3D, and prices continue to drop there. I'm surprised there's still stock. Honestly, I thought the 5800 X3D would have dried up by now. So yeah, maybe they still have a ton of that. And
they make them server chips. That's why.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like 290 right now, right? I think.
Yeah, 289 right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
it's time to get it.
AMD's messaging has been we're going to support AM4 for a while, right? God, I've lost count of the sockets. So I mean, I guess it does offer a service to them, so that's good. But it still feels like
weird.
It's so weird to service two different sockets. It's because, like I was saying this morning, it feels like every AM4 you fill means you're not going to sell an AM5 part. So it feels like you want to transition people onto the new things sooner rather than later. But maybe it's just things are kind of that ugly out there.
Well, here's a good question. IB fan 814 asks, who would the 5800 X3D be for?
Well, number one, if you have an existing board and it takes the X3D part and you primarily play games, hell yeah, I think that's the main one.
Depends cost too, because I mean, if you can get a 8-core version for under $300.
Oh, the 5600 version.
Yeah, the 5600.
Well, cost sensitive, price sensitive people, but I just think there's just a lot of people who have existing boards that can do an in-socket upgrade. So maybe that's the appeal of it.
There's a lot of 3600 owners out there.
Yeah.
And 5600 X3D would be a great upgrade if it works and it happens.
Did you ever upgrade your 1800X system?
I have not yet. No.
Yeah. So my question is actually, that's actually a great question for you, because when the 5600X came out originally, you were thinking of upgrading to that.
Yes.
Would this compel you to finally get off of the first gen Ryzen?
I am compelled to get off of first gen Ryzen sooner than later. Unfortunately, my landlord is compelled to charge me more rent and stuff in the meantime. So, but I think I would probably still go with the 5800 X3D if I didn't upgrade. I think at this point, it's been another year since I've been talking about upgrading to begin with. I think at this point, I'm looking more realistically at a full system rebuild. But if I was looking to stay on the same platform, I think I'd go with 5800 X3D just for the more cores, just because of what I do. But if I was a pure gamer, I'd be totally fine getting a 5600 X3D. There's so many numbers and letters in this.
Yeah. Real quick, one last question, Brad, before you get out of here. IB fan 814 asks, is it possible that AMD skips a 7800 and 7700 releases?
Yeah, any company can do anything at any time. I'm real curious to see what's going on there. There have been different rumors and reports that they're having an issue with the technology itself moving to the memory chiplets, which would explain why they only launched the 7900 X3D. They had a bunch of bugs and stuff. It took them months to figure out drivers. And if so, that could possibly still be affecting other stuff. But they've never said anything officially about that. You just heard that through the grapevine from, the usual suspects. Video cards, I think Moore's Law is dead, stuff like that. And if that's the case and they don't figure it out, they might decide to say, hey, it's cheaper for us to keep making 6800 XTs and selling those for $500 on a last gen node for what the prices of Nvidia are doing. So we'll just wait until this is all figured out and straighten it out from there. But it all depends on the reason that they have not launched yet. So that's a big, verbose, rambling non-answer. But yeah, I could definitely, if there's a hardware reason behind it or some severe software reason behind moving to the chiplets, and those are based on chiplets still, I could see them not launching it. But at this point, the 7900 series seems to be doing pretty all right as far as driver stability is concerned. Now that it ate my system, it's doing better now in the newer ones. So we'll see. I hope they do.
Yeah.
That's how I make money.
Brad, if you need to pop off, go ahead.
I do.
Okay. Thank you, Brad.
Sorry, guys. Nice talking to y'all.
Yeah, we'll see. Lena, do you have time to answer one console question before you get out of here?
Sure.
All right. We got one from Wolfie. Says, do you think that the fact that Starfield is going to be capped at 30 frames per second on console, that it shows that we're almost at the end of life of the stated goal of current gen consoles trying to target 60 FPS?
I feel like that's a big question, because I feel like, no, I mean, like, seriously, because I feel like it's trying to extrapolate like one big market, like, or one big call about the market from just that one title. And I think for me, as a person who on console doesn't really pay as much attention to that kind of thing, I would say that I think you start to think more about that kind of thing when it becomes multiple titles as opposed to just the one.
Yeah.
So it
is a pretty ambitious title too.
Yeah, that too, right? Like there's a lot of different things you take into consideration. And for everybody in the chat who's like, console, haha, I'm so superior. It's like, hey, like, let's not throw stones here because you know how many PC ports have been terrible this year? A lot.
Mm-hmm.
So if things have to be changed in certain ways for it to work on console, that's not actually different than what PC gamers have had to do with some of their titles. So it just kind of boils down to what the game's trying to achieve, like how much the developers have been able to do for optimization and the time frame they've been given for what they want, like for how fast they want to ship, that kind of thing. So I try not to draw immediately draw big picture trends off of just that one thing, especially given that it's been only 2 years, not was it when it no 2.5 years since the console's launched. That's still pretty early in the life cycle for a console.
And I also want to point out it's beefy specs for a game anyway. The min is a Ryzen 5 2600X and an i7 6800K, 16 gigs of RAM, and a Radeon RX 5700 and GeForce 1070 Ti. That's the minimum. The recommended is a Ryzen 5 3600X or an i5 10600K, which CPU you don't need a lot of CPU, but they are recommending that you have a Radeon RX 6800 XT. Again, that is a pretty beefy card, or a GeForce RTX 2080. So it's an ambitious title, so I wouldn't read too much into limiting it on slower consoles.
Yeah. Okay. I'm interested to check it out. Feel free to pop out if you need to.
I think I saw another one that might have to deal with me, so I don't know if you want to take that one.
Which one? Another console one?
No, it's about case coverage.
Oh yeah, it's Isle of Tech asks, are we going to see Elena do more PC case teardown videos and walkthroughs?
I thought you could read the whole thing.
Oh. Well, they appreciate them, as do a lot of people.
I have been talking with Adam recently. There is a new case that hit my radar that I don't know has gotten a lot of coverage or buzz around that I would like to highlight. So we are chatting about that. Video team has just been very busy this year, as I have been with other things. So it's just a matter of sitting down and trying to get that to work out. I miss doing them too. But they are a lot of work. So for everybody involved. So that's kind of one of the reasons why it's a little bit harder to make time for it.
Can you say what the case was?
Oh, it is the Jonesbo. I'm not sure which way people pronounce it. C6. So it is a 15-liter micro ATX case, which I am very excited about. And I've already built in it. I mentioned it actually in the Full Nerd Discord server. So if you want to see some initial thoughts and pictures, it's there. But I think it'd be kind of a fun teardown to do because it's so rare to see a micro ATX case that goes that small. And the price is great. I think it's kind of it's a cool way for people who want to get into small form factor building to do so more affordably because you don't have to pay the mini ITX premium and the small form factor power supply premium as well.
Interesting something to note. I was talking with a motherboard vendor in Taipei, and I was asking whether a 10-layer mini ITX board, because some of them are like 10 layers to jam the amount of crap they have on there, is that more expensive than, say, a 6-layer, standard ATX motherboard? And they actually said that the mini ITX board, because of the layers, is actually more expensive than considerably larger ATX board. So just take that as you want for the PCB costs.
All right, a couple more, then we can get out of here. Let's see. New Tech, friend of the show, New Tech asks, could you ever see Qualcomm going to be in consoles in the future, or the Switch, or maybe other handhelds? Do you think Qualcomm can play there?
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible they want to get in there, but I don't know whether they would really be able to be competitive because there's so many considerations, and from business, whether it makes sense to do it, can you actually make it pay for itself? Do they actually have the performance to be in there. I don't know, but it is. Yeah, sure. I could see them prioritizing it because they really continually are making motions towards running PCs, right? They really they did it again. You know, they showed off something I thought recently, but they in Windows as part of it. They definitely want to see Windows on ARM as an alternative that people would run. So most companies want to eat somebody else's lunch. So it is possible. Whether that's actually feasible, I don't know.
Two more serious questions, two joke ones. Peter Burson asks, for options like streaming and editing photos/videos, would it be good to use NVIDIA, or would AMD be a good option to use as well?
I would say generally you would lean toward NVIDIA. This comes towards that developer relations stuff. They have worked closely with, Adobe to optimize for GeForce. But, that doesn't mean it doesn't run on Radeon, but generally you're going to get a little better performance in some things out of NVIDIA than you will out of AMD. But, Photoshop honestly runs fine on Intel integrated. So not a big difference. But there are some things within Photoshop, within Premiere, within a lot of these applications that just simply favor NVIDIA because they have been throwing money at them for a long time. Money being developers going out to help them optimize for their hardware. So AMD is still playing catch up there. So generally, yes, NVIDIA is the preferred platform for content creation. However, that doesn't mean Radeon doesn't work. Generally it works pretty fine, but you're just going to get a little more out of NVIDIA generally. And then for streaming, it's hard to say. Again, they're both pretty competent cards. I'd have to do some testing to see whether there's an actual difference. I bet it's fine with Radeon, but again, it comes down to money you've thrown at developers to make sure it runs on your hardware, and that's just hard work that the companies with more resources have been doing for a while.
Yeah, I'll tack onto that. I agree with Gordon. The thing that I always, or I guess there's two things. It's like, imagine on the gaming side, right? It's like if you're looking at a NVIDIA versus AMD GPU for gaming, AMD usually offers more bang for the buck for specifically gaming. And sure, they do have a lot of those same options that NVIDIA has, like a broadcast equivalent or an upscaling equivalent, stuff like that. But it's just not as refined. So it's more like the reverse side on the content creation, where I think bang for your buck, you do get more out of NVIDIA. So it's kind of like that 1-to-1 there. But on the flip side, there's a difference for me, at least, between saying, hey, you know what, I do some content creation and streaming as a personal thing. That's one thing. But if you're doing it for work, that's a whole nother thing. When you're doing it for work, at least for me, I heavily prioritize stability and features and just knowing that it's going to work. But if you're just doing it on the side and it's not as crucial to you making money to live on, then it's like, oh, okay, I would have no problem with AMD. So AMD's not bad. I just think bang for your buck and stability for serious work. That's why I personally lean NVIDIA. So
yeah, that's generally what I'd agree. And Christian Nonkin, video and photo editing, get a Mac. It just runs better on Mac OS. Sure. Sure.
Yeah, I would say the only thing I would say for that is that audio on a Mac is always going to be superior for many reasons. That's the only time that I'm like, yeah, if you're serious in audio, definitely look at a Mac.
Yeah.
But for video and photo, I mean, unless you're heavily into like ProRes and you just really want to use Final Cut, then yeah, sure, there's no other option than a Mac. But
yeah, and I think the thing to do if you're just a severe super fan of either, I think it's ridiculous. I was just giving you a ration, but you pick the tool that works best for you.
Yeah.
And if anyone thinks blankly Mac OS is better for photo and video editing, you got a real surprise coming to you, because there are definitely some things that PC will kick the crap out of that Mac on, and there's some things that the Mac will kick the crap out of the PC on.
Depends on what you do.
It depends on what you do. Evaluate the tool for what works for you, but don't blindly believe what some dude, again, or dudette in Reddit tells you because it's better. because it really comes down to what you do. Because there's some things, believe me, you could look at our video. We did a MacBook versus a Razer with Intel and NVIDIA, and that Intel and NVIDIA system, it smoked that MacBook Pro. I'm 16 on the MacBook Pro.
In
16,
certain ways, yeah,
and there's definitely a lot of ways it just kicked its ass in a lot of ways, and there's some things that the MacBook would kick at the PC, and it just comes down to you take the ridiculous, team support out of it and pick the tool. That's what they want you to do, is just think, I have to buy this because I support this team. You have to evaluate it on what the hardware is. Don't blindly believe people.
Last serious question. Friend of the show, Milo Hayek, aka Viper's Hardware, had a really long post in the Discord Q&A talking about how they've had an SD card crap out on them. It's what's happened is that it's showing locked, that it can't read or write to it, and they can't get their data off. I tried to talk to them a little bit about it, and also just say, hey, you know what? I have had plenty of times where an SD card. I use a lot of SD cards, and I've had plenty of them be crap, especially micro SD cards. So, Gordon, what do you have any advice? Have you run into problems with SD cards being reliable?
I actually have not, frankly. Oh, okay. I don't really run them as hard as I used to. And then honestly, for me, most of the DSLR platforms I use are CF anyway. Mm-hmm. So, generally, I would say, I've always favored like SanDisk Pro kind of cards, Pro Extremes, they're whatever. So if you buy a card that it always feels like it's a ripoff because like, wow, I'm just paying so much more for it. I would generally say buy a higher rated card from a known company. I would bet though, I honestly in my heart, I'm making this guess, but I would say 80 to 90% of your problem is you bought that card off of Amazon. It was a name brand card, but the amount of cards, memory cards you buy off Amazon that are just totally bogus ass counterfeit cards is insane. So there's actually a good chance that the card you have was basically a counterfeit card from the get-go. And that may be the heart of it, but it is the counterfeit stuff that goes on with, especially with micro SD and SD cards, is pretty nutso.
What do you have any recommendations on how to recover? Do you know any good tools on how to recover information from a SD card?
Well, I would say if it's that valuable, you have to pay a professional to do it. So that's the unfortunate answer. Professionals might be able, if like I lose this data, then I'm just going to like cry for months. You may have to pay a professional. If it's something you just want to screw around with, sometimes like there are some tools out there. Maybe if you erase the card, like there's things out there, but it's really hard to get it off of there. Like, you ever done that where you've actually, like the card is corrupt, the file system is somehow corrupted. So if you actually erase the card and then and then you can actually then use a recovery program to recover the images. Typically that's on there then.
Yeah, because it's not actually writing completely new ones and zeros. It's just deleting the database, and you can hopefully go back and retrieve it. Yeah, I mean, most of the time, the professional cameras we use write to 2 cards, at this, or that's how I set them up. So then it's like, oh, okay, well, if one craps out, which I've had, then it's like, oh, okay, well, at least I have the recording on another card as well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's not fun. It's not, and that's like high level products as well. Not, Anyway, a fun one to take us out of here. I was hoping Brad could stick around for this one, but I think this would be funny anyway. Friend of the show, Liquid R, said, here's a hypothetical scenario. If you had a foot-long sandwich, okay, that is cut into 2, so you order a foot-long, it's cut into 2, they give you 2 pieces, but they're not symmetrical when they cut it. Do you eat the larger half first and save the smaller half for later? Eat the smaller half first and save the larger half for later? Eat the larger half first and then the smaller half, or eat the smaller half first and then the larger half?
Huh.
Well, I was waiting for this question.
Rory, what's your answer then?
It's very context dependent. Usually I can only tell you what usually happens. So I will go in there and I will cut the sandwich And first of all, I'll be annoyed that I didn't actually cut it perfectly 50-50. And then second, I will tell myself to eat the portion that will be the right amount for my amount of hunger at that time. And often that's the larger half. But what actually happens, I just eat the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like, well, do you stop the person? I was like, whoa, don't cut that. I want to eat the whole damn thing, right? Don't cut it.
No, I prefer having it cut because I feel like when you have the full, like a sandwich, if you start from one end, you have more of a chance of everything just like squishing out the back half of it. Whereas if you have like two discrete pieces, it's like a little easier to maintain the integrity of having all the parts stay like where you want them to be as you're eating the sandwich.
Yeah, I think I default to eating the larger half first, and then being if I'm gonna have one to save for later, like the sandwich place we go to for lunch, right? Like they make huge sandwiches, so the ones that we get here, I can never eat the whole thing, but I usually look and I'm like, okay, but I'm hungry enough to get the at least the larger half, and I would save the smaller half for later. That's me personally.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'd probably eat the larger half first, but I generally will eat the whole damn thing, so it doesn't matter. I think the thing that is like, honestly, I think my problem though is like, who can even tell the difference? Like, generally, because they're eyeballing
sometimes
it,
they're sloppy.
It can't be that. Like, how often can they be?
Sometimes
it's noticeable. Sometimes.
Yeah. I mean,
like I feel like once you get past like a centimeter or so, it's very, very, very obvious already.
I just honestly can't it's like the people who sued Subway because like, wait a minute, this isn't the correct length. It's like, what? It's bread. Remember they got sued because like this foot long is only 11 inches long.
Oh, and
truth in advertising.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in the chat saying eat both, for sure. And then some people say don't cut it. And then Lindsay says diagonal cut, and then you eat the messier side first and wrap the rest. That's a good one. Yeah, eat the messier half first.
You mean wait?
No, diagonal. Wait. Yeah. So it's easier to see if it's two cuts. It's easier to see if it's asymmetrical down a center cut. But if it's more like a diagonal cut, then it's kind of a little bit harder.
I actually think that people. I actually kind of now. I'm changing my mind. I think. I'm changing my mind because I think you people who actually would like be so with the OCD about like this sandwich thing, like what are you gonna like? Do you expect them to put it in some kind of rig, like some kind of you put it in a jig and then they have to like it like has it like a laser cuts the damn thing? Like you want the thing exactly cut in the middle? It's just
nobody's saying it needs to be cut in the middle. We're just saying I expect it to not be cut symmetrically. I'm not expecting them to do it symmetrically. I'm expecting it doesn't get cut symmetrically. So which choice do I make then?
I guess I'm thinking y'all are overthinking this because it's just a sandwich. Like honestly, you would just like I don't know which one's bigger. It's so close. Whatever. It's just a sandwich. Why are you overthinking? Like I just think you're so OCD about this.
Mixing sandwiches.
I don't think you're going to enjoy it either way. What?
I have preferences. It doesn't mean I don't eat the sandwich, Gordon.
Whoa, well, hey, I want to return the sandwich. Why? Because it's not symmetrically cut. I just don't.
I said it bothers me slightly. I didn't say that I don't eat the sandwich. I don't go living my life. I do.
Bob Jones says, Gordon going for the outrage.
I just think like you people are like.
The pony is tired, Gordon. Let it rest in the stables.
Yeah.
I just can't I'm like.
What
you know what? Thinking about
feed the pony the other half of the sandwich. There you go.
Like I could see like this like perfect like CNC machine that's built out of aluminum and everything, and it's got like. And it's so precise, it's actually going to be metric system, not our sloppy ass, imperial system. So it's going to be like, it's got to be right. We're going to like, weigh each side. That
would be funny.
This side has one more pickle than the other side.
You know what? Safeway sandwiches. Safeway is a grocery chain in like at least the Western US. I don't know how far east it spreads, but every time I've gone to a Safeway place for sandwiches, they actually have pretty good deli sandwiches.
Yeah.
They use that like metal like glove thing, so that you've seen it, right? Like they don't want like it's like
like a foot, like a shoe measure.
No, it's like freaking chainmail for their hands because I guess apparently their knives are that sharp where they have to do as a safety thing. And honestly, adding in one more layer of it where like they put the sandwich in some kind of like special cutter would not surprise me if that was what they were doing.
Yeah, the sandwich rig. Like it's like, and then like, yeah, okay. It's just a sandwich. Don't overthink it.
All right. Well,
and it's like,
listen real quick. Lindsay says, don't overthink it, says the guy who ranked coffee places in the beginning. Gordon, don't overthink it.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Just drink coffee.
If you ever had, no, I think that's ridiculous. Because you know what? I was telling Luis, like that Dunkin' Donut coffee, it's basically like toilet water.
Don't overthink it, Gordon.
I don't even like.
Don't overthink it, Gordon. Just drink the coffee.
No, that's
Just
ridiculous.
Coffee.
Because you can tell
it's
the
coffee.
difference.
It's the same thing.
It's terrible coffee. But I'm not talking about like how my sandwich, by the way, is my tummy going to know the difference over which one is bigger or smaller? I don't care. The tummy's like, no. We got to have in order sandwich processing here. Give me the longer piece and then the shorter piece.
Okay.
No.
So Gordon, we're just going to blend all of your food together and just give it to you as a slurry because it doesn't matter. It's all going to be mixed together in your stomach anyway.
Actually,
I'd be okay with that.
He probably would.
Like a sandwich slurp, you could make a new thing. You just kind of like blend the whole sandwich.
Oh no, it's lunchtime.
We need to get out of here. You're right. We need to go to our sandwich place, and we're gonna inspect how well they cut it.
I just like
take a picture.
I'm gonna watch.
Discord.
I'm gonna figure out which half Gordon goes for.
Yeah, I just like the sandwich rig that you have to like get this thing on, and like I just like there's lasers. It measures it. It probably does like a 3D scan of it.
That would actually be really fun. All right. Yeah. Gordon, get us out of here. I'm hungry.
Check back next week for your Fix Up PC Talk on the Full Nerd. For audio listeners, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or Stitcher. And if you're on one of those services, please leave a review because then either Adam or Elaine will break out their sandwich rig to make sure the sandwich is cut perfectly down the middle so they don't have to make the hard choice over eating the longer piece of the Subway sandwich. Thanks for coming. I'm Gordon Ung with Brad Charkis, who left, Elaine Yee.
Bye, everybody.
And Adam Patrick Murray is going to be measuring the Subway sandwich this lunchtime.
And taking Gordon's sandwich and putting it in a blender so he can drink it through his spoon. I will report back over on Discord. Thank you, everybody. We will see you later. Goodbye.
That's how the astronauts eat it.